Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Last Friday morning, as I was flying back from Canberra to Melbourne, our plane was put in a holding pattern for a while and we were circling around that area of Victoria and the Great Divide. It was a beautiful, clear morning. You could see clearly to the Gippsland Lakes and the 90 Mile Beach in one direction and right through to the Murray in the other. But what struck me the most as the plane circled for 10 or 15 minutes was you could still see the scars in the bush of the 2009 bushfires. And of course those 2009 Black Saturday bushfires were the most devastating in Australia's history. 173 people tragically lost their lives, 414 were injured, more than 1 million animals were lost, 450,000 hectares of land were burnt, and you still see many of the scars, Deputy Speaker, with 3,500 buildings, including more than 2,000 homes, are destroyed. So this was a devastating tragedy for all those who were concerned, and the response of the community, as the member for Indi has indicated, was a great response, a very significant response. People from all walks of life doing what they could, making contributions where they could to relief agency efforts, etc., to ensure that as best possible we could aid all of those who had been devastated by these fires. But I want to talk about the future because this year, this coming summer season, has already been indicated by fire authorities and others as being one again which is going to be more hot than usual, more likely to be those sorts of unusual conditions which come along from time to time. You know, we had 100-kilometre-hour winds on that Black Saturday during those bushfires almost a decade ago. And I put it in this context that a recent Country Fire Authority survey revealed that half of all Victorians living in areas of high risk of bushfire actually classified the risk to their homes only as moderate, minor or non-existent. In other words, there's a huge disconnect between the actual risk is there and what people's perception of the risk is in many instances. A third said they would only leave when a fire threatened their town or suburb rather than the morning of or the night before the day of extreme fire danger, which of course is the CFA advice. So preparing for fire season is very important, particularly in the context of the summer which we're facing right throughout Australia, and of course we see what's happening in other parts of Australia at the present time. And I particularly urge my constituents in the new areas of my electorate, in Eltham North, Research, Kangaroo Ground, Warrandyte North, places which have been touched by bushfires in the past, places of which there are very few ready exits in terms of major roads if people need to flee, to actually be prepared and to have plans for what they might do should these extreme warnings come from the Country Fire Authority and other authorities at the time. And of course there's the other work that can be done now, such as cleaning up their property and especially around their house, which can reduce the risk and therefore in many instances reduce and prevent destruction. So even if people are going to leave early, please follow the steps that the CFA and other fire authorities have set out in terms of minimising damage to property. Move furniture, wood piles and mulch away from windows, decks and eaves. Prune tree branches so that they're not overhanging the roof or touching walls. Keep grass shorter than 10 centimetres and regularly remove leaves and twigs. Don't allow plants higher than 10 centimetres in front of windows or glass doors. And of course, if you are leaving, before you do so, make sure you remove all flammable items from around your home. Houses have been lost from things as simple as embers landing on a doormat, and of course what we saw a decade ago was those great ember storms that went kilometres forward and caused so much damage and destruction as a consequence. And then of course some very practical things such as checking that your home and contents insurance is current and includes a level of cover in line with current building standards and regulations. These are simple common sense advice which is given by the authorities in relation to the risks that people face, yet as the CFA survey showed, many people who are at a significant risk are not aware of the level of the risk, and of course that itself can be a trap for them if they do find themselves in the devastating and tragic consequences that we saw in Victoria a decade ago. So I urge everybody, whether in my electorate or wherever else in Victoria or Australia, with this season of hot summer coming, to take the necessary precautions to try and minimise any damage if it should tragically occur.